Welcome to the Collab Podcast. My name is Michelle.
And my name is Devin.
On this podcast, we explore concepts of self-mastery and community collaboration
through in-depth panel discussions and intimate interviews with dance's most prominent figures.
Yeah, she my peanut butter jelly snack, pull it ride, but she painting. That's my sunshine when it's raining. That's my boo, yeah. When I'm all alone, she pulled through.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Collab Podcast. I'm back with my co-host, Michelle, and today's guest holds a very special place in our hearts. Formerly Jane Domingo, now Jane Domingo-Banares, is a dancer of 15 years and a self-made entrepreneur, inspiring women everywhere to pursue their passion to create. Owner of She Greets the Day, Jane created a demand for handmade art and accessories that empower exploration, creativity, and highlight the beauty of being a woman. After finding love in an unexpected way, Jane decided to take a pause and move her life across the globe to where she now resides with her husband, Jordan, on a U.S. military base in Spain. Also a freelance graphic designer and illustrator with an award-winning portfolio, Jane is the creator behind the Collab Podcast logo and artwork. Recently, Jane and her sister started an online specialty retail shop called Lux and Lia, mainly created for kids, but also offering a variety of rad accessories and goods for adults. We have the great privilege of talking with dancer, entrepreneur, and our sister-in-law, Jane Domingo-Banares. Welcome to the show, Jane.
Wow, that was such a good intro. I think I'm ready to leave now. That's all I needed.
It's honestly it's so exciting for us to have you on the show. We did mention in the introduction that you've helped us create what has now become Collab's aesthetic and artwork. And also you've just done some really awesome things that we can't wait to talk about today.
Oh, thank you. Well, to start off, when you both approached me to interview me for the podcast, I was like, wait a second, I'm not as cool as all the previous guests.
That's simply not true.
Yeah, I was like, I've never danced with Billie Eilish. I don't tour the world. But yeah, I was like, you know what? I mean, if anything, it's always fun to catch up and just talk and catch up about life and everything. So I'm excited. I'm excited to talk to you too.
We are very excited to talk to you too. I mean, another reason, actually, let's take it back. Another reason why we thought it would be fun to have you on the podcast is because, as you know, your husband and our brother Jordan was on the podcast, and he talked about how you guys met, and you were actually sitting in the same room in the background, and you were kind of like, let's fact check those facts, Jordy.
Yeah, I was like, it's his time to shine. I'll just let him sing.
That was very kind.
Get on. It's my. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So here's your opportunity to basically debunk everything that Jordy said about how you guys met. So we want to hear your perspective. I'll also take it back because I want to talk about your experience with Pasacat, because I know that was a really great experience for you. I mean, you danced with them for a very long time. So let's talk about Pasacat, and then let's talk about how you met Jordy.
Okay, so taking it all the way back, I think I was about 10 years old when I first started. It was back when Pasacat was still doing their, I think it was they called it the outreach programs, when they would go to different elementary schools and do their after school program. So of course, my mom was like, oh, Philippine dance, you get to learn about your culture. So I was like, she instantly was like, I think I'm going to enroll you in this. I think you should do this. And I was 10 years old at the time. I was like, okay, it seems fun. It's something to do. So I enrolled, and then Auntie Joji, who's the head choreographer of Pasacat, she was talking to my mom, and after a few months of it, she was like, I think your daughter would really like be like she should join like the actual Pasacat dance company. And my mom was like, yes, do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, why not? Like, I'm already having fun doing it, so like why not like actually do it instead of just doing it after school. So it was funny because so she was the teacher in the after school program, and then she would give me rides straight to like dance rehearsal. And so it was like an hour of after school Pasacat with Auntie Georgie, and then another like hour again at the actual Pasacat building. So, you know, when I first got into it, I actually like really fell in love with it, even as a 10-year-old, like not really knowing what Philippine dance was. And I think that's what got me into it, was because like, you know, they would tell us kind of like the background story of what these dances mean. And that like fascinated me right away, because I was like, oh, we're telling stories with our dance, you know, I'm a butterfly, I'm a fish, you know. And like even like the different like symbolisms in the dance moves, and like the different costumes that we got to wear. I just all around, like as a kid, I thought it was so much fun. So, you know, that was like my very first initial start into it. And then I just kept it up for 15 years until I eventually like had to move and all that. But I think like what really made me stay for that long in Pasacat, because like, you know, a lot of people come and go, a lot of people, like new people will come and then they leave, but there's always like a set group of people that will stay for like such a long period. And I think what really made me stay was the people that I would meet. And you know, they become acquaintances at first, you get to know them, and then later on they become like really close friends, and then they turn into your family. So, you know, like everyone from like Auntie Roji, like she can be really hard on you, but you know, like as a dancer, you're taking it, and like, you know, it's all out of love. Auntie Anna, who's always like so supportive of like everything that's going on. She's always the one like, you know, going to like outreach programs, or like, I guess like spreading the word of Filipino dance and like Filipino culture. So like, and then all like the dancers as well, all of like the dance masters, all of the choreographers, I don't know, just everybody. It was like, it's a really different feeling when you're like in the building with everybody, because you just, and I'm sure this goes for like any sort of dance studio, like you're in the building with people that you've like had long hours with, long rehearsals with, and you're just like, I don't know, it's a different vibe. And like I said, like meeting people, that's where I met Jordy. And so, you know, it's actually funny because we started out because I think by the time that you know, you, Devin, and Jordan got into Pasacat, I was already in it for about like 2 years. So we were like maybe 12, 13 at the time. So it was like a little awkward, like, oh, who's that? New boys. There's a new boy. And like, I mean, I don't know. It's like, you know, in Pasacat, when you're young and it's like, you like get paired up with dance partners, especially for like specific dances. So you're always like, who am I going to get paired up with this time? So funny thing is, I never got paired up with Jordy, but we still managed to like be close and be friends. And I think that's what really made like the bonds in Pasacat special, because you just get close to everyone. So yeah, even till now, obviously we're married. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong bond, I would say.
Yeah.
I have two questions. One, what was your favorite costume to wear in Pasacat? Because when you mentioned that, I was like, yeah, one of my favorite things about Pasacat were the costumes, getting dressed up, because they're so elaborate, so ornate, and so specific to each of the suites and the dances that you're doing. And then my second question for you is, if you were still in the States, would you be dancing with Pasacat?
All right. I love these questions. Okay. So my favorite costume, it's really hard for me to pick because I've done it for 15 years, like actively dancing. Like I guess been associated with Pasacat for 17 years because I started when I was 10. I'm 27 now. But actively like dancing, I was in it for 15 years, and there were so many like costumes that I can't even like really. I mean, first I guess is like any Maria Clara suite, which is like, you know, the Spanish influence, you're kind of wealthier, like higher class or dances or performances. You get to wear like the big gowns or like the puffy petticoats, and then the shawl and everything. So like those costumes I always felt like so pretty in, because we get to wear like a flower, we get to wear like necklaces and everything. But I think also my other, like I just have favorite costumes in every suite. And like that's how Filipino dance works too. It's like there's different suites. There's Maria Clara, which I mentioned. There's oh no, I'm forgetting. There's Igorot or Mountain Tribal. I hope none of Pasacat is watching and like they're like testing me. They're like, "Girl, you forgot your stuff." But there's the Muslim suite. There's the country, and that's more like the traditional like countryside of the Philippines. And I think I had one for each suite. So Maria Clara, any of the big like dresses. For the tribal suites, I really love banga. I don't know if you remember that, the one where you have to carry your pots. I loved it because we got to wear a leotard that had like sleeves of like fake tattoos. We got to wear like a beaded headband. And I just felt like every time I just felt so cool because I was like, yeah, I'm wearing tattoos. So, you know, that like, it's just fun. Every suite is so much fun to like dress up in. There was one extravaganza performance, which is like the bigger, like the end of the year, like big performance for all of the older dancers, the company dancers. There was one extravaganza where I had not really a solo, but it was like a duet. It was me and someone else, and I had to dress up as a bird. So I had like a big feather headpiece, and then I had like big fans, and it was in the Muslim suite. So, you know, those movements are very like delicate, very like, I don't know. And then I got to like run and pretend I'm flying. So I don't know. It's always so much fun to like dress up and like wear different costumes. So, and then to answer your second question, I think for sure, yeah, I would probably still be in it, because I think for me and a lot of people that have been in it as long as I have can relate. Like every time you try to take a break or try to, you know, like say, all right, this is my chance to like grow and do my own thing for now, there's always something that pulls you back in. And I think last time, the very last extravaganza that I was a part of, there was only, I think 14 of us. And usually, you know, like when you have an extravaganza, when you have big performances like that, there's like at least like 30 or whatever, like really, there's a lot of people. And this time it was like shrunk down to literally like 14 people. And I think that was including the musicians. I can't remember. But that's when I like really felt the bond between all of us, because we would have like certain days where we would sit in a circle and we would talk about like why is it that we're here and what like keeps us coming back. And I feel like, I don't know, it's just like, beyond the dance, it's the bond that you create with like your fellow dancers. Like I said earlier, you're there for hours at a time at rehearsals. It could even be like 12-hour rehearsals, and you're like tired of seeing each other's faces, but you're still like, we got this. You like work together, and we got this. So like, as hard as it can be sometimes, I feel like I don't know, just the bond is always like what keeps me coming back. So, yeah.
I think the really beautiful thing about Pasacat, is not only is it cultural centric, but it really is timeless, because you're drawing from the culture specifically. And so that carries on generation after generation after generation. And I think that that's one of the things that I loved most about Pasacat. And I actually, up until Pasacat, never really like understood who I was as a Filipino American. But when, and I didn't have the privilege of actually dancing with Pasacat, but I know when Devin and Jordan joined, it really kind of brought us together as a family and really forced us in a good way to be in touch with being Filipino Americans. And we learned so much during that time. One of the other things that I want to say that you touched on is the cost. Like both you and Devin were talking about the costumes. The costumes are incredible. And I actually was so inspired by it when I took my engagement photos. I made my mom fix my hair like you guys had your hair fixed in Pasacat with like the tight bun, And I remember like for my engagement photo shoot, my mom had like tried to like stylize it. And I was like, no, this is not how you do Devin's hair for Pasacat. Like, like I need it to be like the Pasacat bun, But I think it's just a great thing because it's so timeless, and it's a great way to inspire generations to come.
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about the bun, because for many years we've actually kind of tried to, not petition in a way, but kind of tried to like slowly, because you know how it used to be up here, like it's with modern times, you gotta keep up with the times. I know a lot of the girls from when I was still actively dancing, a lot of the girls are like, yeah, why don't we just lower the bun, have a cute little like side bun, or have a cute little like with the little part here. So I mean, there's still the bun, but it's funny because it is timeless, but it also like, trying to evolve with the times. So trying to modernize it in a way where you're still keeping in touch with your roots, with the culture, the symbolism, that making sure that it's accurate, but still, I guess, feeding into a newer generation, a newer audience. So that audience, you're like pulling that audience in. So I really appreciate that about like Filipino dance. And, there's some like people that are like really traditional, Filipinos, a lot of Filipinos are very traditional, but there's also that side. I feel like that switching over to like, technology, and like, especially now with the pandemic, like everything is going like virtual. So I feel like you gotta be creative with it. So that's exciting. Like I'm actually like excited to see that. I haven't been in Pasacat for 3 years now, but when I see like, like all of the changes to like the hairstyles or like whatever it may be with costumes or something, like getting more like creative freedom with it, it's really exciting to see. So yeah.
Yeah. Just slowly moving the bun a little lower each. I remember that too. And I remember the buns when we were dancing, they had to be like your hair was completely pulled back, and by the end of the night, I would get a headache because it's just like it was so like, it had to be so perfect, and it had to just like everything just tied back and out of your face. So I'm really excited to see how you were saying Pasacat has evolved and made some changes and has adaptable and more flexible with like what's trending now.
Yeah. And I think for sure, like a lot of that has to go, or has to deal with a lot of like the dance masters now, which is like the newer generation, like Matt and Gemma are very hands-on with it. And, you know, they're kind of, I guess, not in a sense like taking over, but they're bringing in more, I guess, like the younger side of it. So then there's a lot of like new, like videos that they're coming out with. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Like, especially now, like recently they came out with, I think it was for the San Diego Design Week. And they came out with like a video. I was like, wow, I'm so amazed by this. Like, I wish I was a part of it, but you know, I'm still proud of them.
Well, Jane, I really loved what you were saying about, you know, I was talking about Pasacat being timeless, but I love that, you know, Pasacat's really making an effort to appeal to the current generation, because you're right, without the newer generations, you know, Pasacat would die out because there would be no interest in joining the company to actually do these performances. So I think that that's really beautiful. And we can talk a little bit more about Pasacat towards the end of the episode, because I know that you definitely want to give them a shout out. And for anyone that's interested, we want to make sure that we point them in the right direction. I want to talk about what was life after Pasacat. You know, you are really just this really beautiful, powerful entrepreneur, you know, that seems very timid and very gentle, but really behind the scenes, you've created several really great businesses for yourself. So I want to talk a little bit about how She Greets the Day started, and then also just kind of some of your other endeavors as a freelance graphic designer.
Yeah, so She Greets the Day actually started, like the thought of it actually started back in high school for me. It was more so a side project. You know, I think it was my senior, maybe even my junior year of high school. And I was like, you know, working on classes, trying to start applying for college. And I was kind of getting stressed out about that. So I started doing something on the side, which was, you know, creating like accessories and just little things like that. So I actually started She Greets the Day way back when, but I didn't actually pursue or do anything with it until I moved out of San Diego and into Virginia in 2017. So I had She Greets the Day. Back in high school, I made the Etsy for it. I like did all of that, but I wasn't really sure. Like there was no direct like focus for that I had no like end goal or direction just yet. And then when I finally got to college, which was about like 2011, 2012, I started doing graphic design. And I pushed She Greets the Day aside because I was like, I got to focus on, you know, school and like my actual eventual career, which was like what I wanted to do, which was graphic design. And I think towards my senior year of college, when I was about to graduate, there was I think I was working on my portfolio, and in one of my classes, like we had to choose a project that was a very personal project for us. So you can choose like if you wanted to rebrand one of your like favorite brands, or you wanted to do the logo work for a made up restaurant, you know, something that showcases your like skills and it like doing so in a project that you actually want to do, like that you chose for yourself. So of course, no brainer for me, I chose to do She Greets the Day and do like the design work for it. And because I knew like in the back of my mind that I always wanted to like have She Greets the Day like started again. You know, I didn't want to just have it like in the back burner. I wanted to actually try to do something with it. So I made all of the initial like logo work and design for it. My teacher at the time, my design teacher really loved it because I told her that it was actually something that I was going to try to create, like an actual brand where I had like real, like, you know, accessories that I made or whatever. At the time, it was like accessories, like so many like ideas I had with it. So she really liked the idea because it was like, she knew it would be personal for me. So once I got all of that, like using the skills that I learned in school as a graphic designer, I then, after completing that project, I then actually used it for my, you know, Etsy shop at the time. I started Instagram. I started all of the social media for it. And then I moved to Virginia. And so I guess like backstory on that was like right after I graduated college, hold on, I'm getting lost in my train of thought.
It's a lot that you took on.
There's a lot that I did, and I'm like, a lot of things that went through my mind that year in 2016. So, but yeah, and that was when I graduated, was 2016. So I think right after or right before I graduated, I like wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I like I said, like I was doing the design work for She Greets Today. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this out. But once I actually graduated, I was working full time at the county, and I was like, I know I'm not gonna, you know, be here forever, like because it was a desk job that I like wasn't, you know, my career goal or end sight. So I knew like I wasn't going to be here forever. And while I was at work one day, I had this thought of like, I just graduated. I had this thought of, what if I just move? And this was before me and Jordy like got together. So I was like, what if I just move to Virginia, like across the country, and start like pursuing She Greets the Day there? Because at the time I was like, you know, I just graduated. I don't want to settle in one thing just yet. Like, I don't want to choose one place to work at and have that be like it for me. I want to see what else I can do. And, you know, I'm still young. I can still, like, if it doesn't go the way I planned, I can always, you know, find something, like find like a job in like an actual in-house studio or whatever it is that I wanted to do. So I made that decision. I called up my sister and I was like, hey, what do you think about me moving to Virginia with you guys? Because at the time they were living there. Her husband is U.S. Navy, so they were stationed there. And so I've been there a few times before. And, you know, my thought of moving there was, it's in the East Coast. It's close to New York, kind of. Maybe there's like all these other cool, like it's like a young and up and coming, like there's a lot of young up and coming places there. So maybe I can try to, you know, start my brand in like the indie like maker craft market or whatever. So she was like, yeah, come over, because that sounds like a really fun idea. And so I don't know, should I just go full story?
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay, so then right after I made that decision is when me and Jordy started like getting close again, I guess. So this was like towards like the very end of 2016, I believe. And I planned on moving the next year, which was 2017. And then so once we got into a relationship, I told him, I was like, look, I'm going to move. Like, I already made that decision, and I want to do this to prove to myself that, you know, like, I don't want to stay just because I'm in a relationship. I want to be able like to prove to myself that like I can be independent and, you know, pursue what I want to do, even if it's like something small. So, I mean, he was completely supportive. So right away I was like, okay, so far so good with him. But yeah, so, and my parents were supportive too, because they knew that I was moving with my sister. So I still had like family. I still had people that I could, you know, fall back on if anything goes wrong. I wasn't just moving to a different state to like start over. I don't know. So yeah, so they were very supportive about it. And then once I actually got to Virginia, that's when I really like, well, first couple months, like the transition phase, it was really hard because I was in a new place. I was falling out of motivation. I was like, wait, what am I doing here? Like, what did I want to do here again? And then I had a couple of friends like, why don't you just come back to San Diego? Because, you know, whatever you're doing there, you can do it here. And I was like, you're right. I should have just stayed. But then at the same time, I was like, no, I'm already here. I have to like actually put in work now. So before I like really got into doing She Greets Today, of course, I was like, I don't want to just start and then not have it go anywhere. Like I want to have a backup. So I started working 2 retail jobs. And then on the side, I would work on like whatever it was. Like at the time, I was working on embroidery patches. I was working on like pins, designing pins, designing like accessories. But I hadn't like put that up in like at all yet. Not even on Etsy. I haven't publicized it at all yet. I haven't put it up on Instagram or anything. So no one really knew what I was doing except for like my sister and my family. So I was like, I want to do this, but let me work so I can pay for like, you know, supplies and whatnot. So once I actually started feeling comfortable enough to, you know, create like a lot of like more products to sell and to get myself out there, I started searching up different markets and events. And there was a lot, surprisingly, there was a lot of like independent artists and independent makers and small businesses. There was a lot of events that catered to them. So you could sign up for a booth and then, you know, sell your products, and hopefully like the locals will come by and see your stuff and enjoy it. So that's what I started doing. I did my very first show a few months after I got to Virginia, and it was actually, for me personally, like it was a small thing for me. It was a pretty big event, but for me, I felt like such a small creator. So I was like, no one like knows who I am. I'm the new girl in town. Like I'm the new whatever. So when locals started to come up to my booth and tell me that, wow, like your stuff is really cool, or I love it. Like, did you design this, or did you like make this on yourself or by yourself, or did you like have someone make it for you? Because I would design at the time. I would design like just like whatever it was designs. I said design a lot. I would illustrate. There you go. I would illustrate these designs, and then I would end up transferring it and then hand embroidering it to make patches for like your jean jackets or whatever cool outfits you wanted to customize. So, and I would also make like wall decor and all of that. So people would be like, did you make this yourself, or did you like get someone to do it and then like you designed it and everything? And I was like, no, everything here is 100% handmade, like 100%. And like I spent all night, like all-nighters until like 5 a.m. like making sure everything is good. So I think like ever since my first show, people started to, you know, take notice or recognize like my brand. And then for the next couple shows that I would do after, they would be like, hey, I saw you on the flyer, like I saw your name and I was excited. You're one of the vendors that I was really excited to buy from or to shop from today. And then that, like, hearing that alone, like made me feel like, okay, this is, you know, validation. Like this is why I know I could have done this anywhere. I probably could have done it in San Diego, but this is like, you know, being able to move to somewhere where I don't know anybody other than like my family, and like still have like people I don't know, like strangers or locals, telling me that they really like my stuff. It was like a huge validation. And like, even if I was making like a good amount, but I wasn't making like bank on it, like enough to retire on for sure. But like definitely not that. But I was still like, for me, it wasn't about that. It was more so just getting like being able to create and then sharing it with the world or with locals or with whoever like wants to, enjoy it. And I think like, I don't know, like after I got that feeling of validation, I started branching out into like trying to find events outside of like my local area, which was like Virginia Beach and Norfolk. So then I was like, hey, let's try Richmond, which is the capital of Virginia. And it's like, there's a lot of like independent artists and makers there as well. So it's about like an hour and a half away from where I was. So there was a couple events where I would go by myself because my sister had to take care of like my niece and nephew, like my brother-in-law was at work, so she couldn't leave or come with me. So I would like go by myself. And then I started meeting people even there in Richmond, like an hour away. I started meeting people who were from Virginia Beach who were like, hey, I recognize your stuff. And then so I was able to like meet people and become friends with them. And then they would always start like for the next couple events I would do, they would start like showing up and supporting. So I was like, wow, this is cool. Like I feel like I like started making something or like making my name out here in Virginia. And then I was able to do an event in Washington, DC, which is like this like huge event in House of Blues. And, there's like performers, there's like all sorts of like artists, like anywhere from like musicians to jewelry makers like myself and like painters, and anything of the like. And I got to like be a part of that. And that was really cool to just branch out and to like go to a different state to do it. So like for me, like it felt really cool to be able to say like, yeah, like, I traveled and was able to like sell my stuff and sell my creations and people were able to see it. And then so, yeah, I was able to like grow a following. And then what else? And then after that, I think, there was one event, my very last event in Virginia, because by this time, I know like the timeline is probably weird, but by this time, me and Jordy were already married. So I was getting ready to move to Spain. So it was my very last show in Virginia. And one of the local shops actually approached me and asked me if I wanted to start selling my stuff in stores. And that's when I was like, oh, wow, this is so awesome. Like, this is going to work out perfectly because I can do this anywhere and then I'll be able to like ship my stuff to the store and still like have it be sold and all of that. And like it was a weird transition for me after moving because I was on such a high of She Agrees Today. And I never really talk about this. I do talk about it with like Jordy and all of that and like, but I never really talk about it because I still like wanted for sure keep She Agrees Today going, but it was a weird transition that after I moved and we got here, I felt like how I felt when I first got to Virginia. I felt like that the motivation was gone again. I was quickly uninspired again. And I think it was because I was in such a high of like growing my business and like getting support and like new customers or new like people that like my art or my designs. And then I had to move, which, like obviously it was my choice and everything. So when I got here, I was like, I just felt very unmotivated, I guess, because it was such a new place and it's so far away from like family and friends. And it's such a small community that like, for me, I feel like I was used to being able to explore like different of like finding these events and exploring outside of just like where I was. So I felt like a little bit restricted. And then even then, when I was selling in stores, I just like I had to tell the shop owners, like, I don't know if I can keep doing this anymore, because I just feel like I'm not producing enough to make. And like they would email me and be like, do you think that you can have this amount because your items are selling out? And I was nervous because I wasn't in my like usual setting. I couldn't go to places where I usually buy like my supplies and stuff. So I just felt out of my element. So I kind of stopped. I actually stopped She Greets the Day. Like I took a pause from it, and I was like, I think I'm gonna, I'll take a pause, but I'll probably continue it. So then I started. I put a pause on that, and I was like, I still love it. I still want to do this, but I'm going to continue doing other things that'll probably be easier for myself, which was freelance, like illustrating and design. And, that's something that I was like already, that I've learned in college. And I had like skills that I learned, and I was already illustrating on the side. And so when I got here, I was doing more like logo work, and then even like flyer work and wedding invites. So I was doing a lot of that. I would do a lot of like, what is it called? I'm blanking, hold on.
Like commissions?
Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say customized, I don't know. But yeah, I was doing a lot of commissions. And but at the same time, like for me, I love working with my hands and like being able to create something tangible. So I still like, I love to illustrate and I love to like design, but I was still missing that part of me where I would like create something that like I saw in my head or that I envisioned, and then like make it and then have it be like an actual end product. So I was still missing that. And then fast forward to today, that's exactly what I'm trying to do again. I'm trying to start it over with like my earrings and like the clay earrings that I've been doing and beaded accessories that I've been doing. So I'm having fun with that. But before that, I was working on designs and logos, which, I was doing collab. So that was one of my favorite projects to do because I got to do it with you too.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we're so excited when we realized that we needed to put together a logo because we're like, we know the perfect person to ask to help us.
I'm interested to know, Jane, I want to back up because there was so much in what you just said. I want to point out to our listeners just the importance of having the courage to go and do. I mean, there were several instances in your story where you were just like, I'm just going to go and do. And why not? Why not move to Virginia? Why not move to Spain? And despite having to kind of like basically uproot your life and start over in both of those instances, I think it's really important for our listeners to understand that, it takes a lot of courage and there's so much good that comes out of it. If you have the motivation and the inspiration, to follow your passion, and you're the perfect example of that. So I just want to make sure to highlight that. The other thing that I wanted to ask is, how do you as a graphic designer, because I think Devin and I, we weren't very clear about what we wanted our design to be. We knew in our minds what we wanted the collab vision to be, but really the work was all you. I mean, you took kind of like our words that were like disconnected and didn't make any sense, and you created this beautiful vision of artwork and logo for us. So I'm interested to know like what your process is behind really like trying to connect these really disjointed pieces.
I think for me, the process, it kind of worked out because in my mind, I'm also just like discombobulated and like a lot of things go on and my mind goes like miles a minute. So, you know, whenever I get into designing a piece, I always try to take notes of what you guys or like my clients or whoever it is, or like if it was you two, I always try to take notes of what exactly it is that you guys are looking for, and like highlighting like, okay, well, this is gonna, like when we first started, I think it wasn't quite, there wasn't quite a focus on what collab was going to be just yet. I think we were talking about it, and it could have been like so many things, but for sure it was always going to be about the community and about the dance community. So for me, I was like, okay, well, I want to make this logo something that, you know, is not trending, but more so like that will pop in, because, you know, the world of dance and like hip hop and, you know, like it's fast paced and it's always like evolving, and I wanted the logo to be able to like evolve with it, I guess, in a way. So I was trying to do like big, like I think my initial sketches that I showed you was like, it was like big illustrated text, and like I even had some that were more geometric. I think it was like a rectangle logo. And I remember that one was like one of the winners, I think. Like there was like a divide, I think. I remember you guys took a poll. So there was like a divide on like what direction the logo should go. And I think the rectangular logo was one of like the designs. And so that was one thing. And then there was like a 180 where we met like another time. So that logo was still like on the side. And then there was another time we met, and that's, I think, when you two came up with the idea of having collab be a podcast. And then so I think we were still talking about that logo, but then we also wanted to do like something completely different. So like a whole like 180 on it. And I think that's when I was like, yeah, I'm going to go for a more organic, more like circular, more like complete. And I really love like circle logos because I just feel like they're more complete and they're timeless, and you'll be able to use it in all sorts of media, and not just, you know, like for the web or for social media or for like YouTube videos or like whatever it may be. You can use it for merch. You can use it for like, you know, letterheads or envelopes if you're like writing to like future guests or something as like thank you cards or whatever. You know, that's like something that I took when I was studying graphic design. Like they were telling us like, you know, like you want to be able to use this design in any form, and if you can't, like at least like have variations of it that you can use in like any form. So when you guys came up to me with the whole like podcast idea, I was like, okay, well, the rectangular shape, that's out of the picture, at least in my head. I was like, I don't want to do that. So I don't know. I think my process for the new logo, the current one that you're using, I think, like I said, I love like the circle logos. I love how complete it feels. And then I also was practicing like lettering. So I wanted to do a mix of like lettering and then also like just a sans serif font where it's just straight like collab, you know, like it's easy to read. And I knew that it could be used in different forms, like I said, but I also had the idea of wanting to animate it. And I felt like that logo would be easy to animate. So that's what I tried. And I know I've noticed that you guys have used it in like your Instagram stories. I was like, oh, how cool. Or even your like the YouTube videos. So I was like, okay, this is perfect. Like, I hope they really like it because I think this is the one. So that kind of like branched out into all these other like the YouTube banner now and like the whole theme. Like I wanted to highlight kind of like the whole design itself, like the whole like theme of it. It's not too harsh, not too bold, not too solid, not too geometric or whatever. So I wanted to, translate that into like the rest of the designs.
Yeah, as Michelle said earlier, when we first approached you about collab, we had a lot of thoughts, and a lot of those thoughts that we shared with you were pretty abstract and pretty elusive, but we felt so confident going to you about it because we're like, Jane can do something with this and Jane will make it great. And that was absolutely the case. I mean, we've talked to you previously about, just kind of refreshing like our Instagram and stuff. And I was having such a hard time not plastering the logo everywhere because I was so in love with it. And just everything that you've done, everything that you do, everything that you create is absolutely spectacular. Well, I do want to kind of talk a little bit about how we're airing this episode in the new year. It's 2021. And while we do talk to a lot of dancers on the podcast, I find that a lot of those dancers take their creativity and run with it in other avenues and other vehicles, such as you have done with She Greets the Day and now Lux and Lia. So what advice would you give to people who are maybe feeling like a little bit nervous about jumping into their next project, maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed, maybe feeling a little uncertain, not knowing like what the outcome is going to be? What would you say to them?
I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of things to say because I'm still in the same boat. I get a lot of time, like days where I have so many ideas and I think that I can do it, but I feel like I'm doing too much almost. And then it makes me uncertain. It makes me doubt myself. I'm like, wait, let's take a step back. And I think my biggest advice would be to just, write down your ideas first and foremost, and then whatever you're uncertain of, put those aside for now and go for the things that you really want to do first. It's always hard to start, I think, but you're never going to get anywhere if you don't. And I think for me, I remember seeing this quote where it's like, I'm a big failure, or I'm afraid of failure, but I never try, or it's because I never try. So I'm like, well, if you're not trying, then you'll never know if you're going to fail or succeed. So I think just having a start and not being afraid to pursue other things if it doesn't work out. There's a saying you could be the jack of all trades, but master of none. And I think for me, at least in my opinion, I feel like that quote is very restrictive because you should be able to do all the projects that you have in mind and all the ideas that you have. And if you're feeling uncertain, I feel like you should just start, even if it's something small, because if you feel like you're not going to be good at it, like I said, you'll never know unless you try. So I think, that I still have to, tell myself that too. There's days where I'm like, okay, I have this idea, I have a project in mind, but I don't know if I can do it. I'm already working on one thing here and I want to perfect that. But, I'm thinking about this constantly. So I think just pushing yourself. And if there's days where it's really hard, don't be afraid to take a break as well. I don't know. There's just a lot. I feel like it's easy to tell somebody to just start, but it has to come within. If it's something that you really want to do, then you should just go for it.
Well, and that's a really good point that you made, Jane, because and I don't think we've ever had someone point this out on the podcast, but as creatives, as creators and creative people in general, your mind could go, a million miles per hour. And it's really hard to stop the creative juices, especially once you are like in a groove. And so I think it's really important, as you said, to like write everything down, prioritize, like really try to organize your thoughts, because I mean, in a really short amount of time, you could have a million great ideas, but if you can't organize them, they're just going to fly out. So I think that that's really great advice.
Yeah, and I still struggle with that too, because I feel like every day there's a new idea and I have to write it down. And like sometimes like it can get discouraging to see a really long list of ideas and never getting to the end of it. But I feel like there's no limit, there's no time limit to your goals or your ideas or whatever projects you want to pursue. And like I guess that's kind of what's going on with me. Like I still want to do work on She Greets Today, and even though I took a pause from it, there's no like ending. Like I at least for me, like I there's no time limit, so I can still continue on and do it if I wanted to. So, and then starting a new business as well with my sister. So it's just a lot of like write down your ideas and make sure that you're setting goals and prioritizing what you need to, but don't feel like pressure to do it all at once, or to like, don't necessarily have to set a time limit, because, you'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Gary Vee, and he likes to say that you can do it all, just try not to do it all at once. You have the rest of your life, and I think it also gives you something to look forward to. So for all of our listeners who are excited about a new year, excited for a fresh start, just know that you can start however you want, and this year can be amazing. You just have to go after it. Yeah, we definitely want to talk a little bit more about your new venture with Lux and Lia. So can you tell us, what was the idea behind it? How did Lux and Lia come to be?
Lux and Lia actually started back in, I think, the year that my niece was born, which was 2017, which is also the year that I moved to Virginia. So not only was I pursuing She Greets Today, but me and my sister were like, because she was like seeing me do like all these creative events, and like she herself was she would make like accessories for kids, like for my niece and nephew. Like she would make little bow ties for my nephew, little like hair, like hair bows for my niece. And I was like doing home decor along with like accessories for She Greets Today at the time. So I was like, why don't we combine forces and do this? And she was like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do it. So I actually, I think I took right away, like as soon as we thought of it, and I right away took like the Instagram name and the Etsy shop name and everything, and like emails, and like, all right, we're doing this. All right, let's get serious. So I started it, and then we kind of like pushed it aside. Because then, she was focused on raising her kids, and then I was focused on, and she also had a photography business at the time as well. So, and then I was doing She Greets Today, and I was like, okay, well, it's there if we ever want to get back to it. But like I said, there's no time limit. So it's there if we ever want to get back to it. And then, so years later, I think it was back in quarantine, back in March, that's when, we were like stuck at home, couldn't really do much. So my sister was doing a lot of making like accessories, and she was doing a lot of like hand-dyed socks for my niece and nephew. And then whenever she would post it, she would get compliments and like asking her if she's going to start selling it. And then so she approached me about like the whole Lux and Lia idea again. And I was like, dude, let's do it. Because, it's quarantine, not really, like, not much is going on. So why not? Like, why not get into like a new creative venture? And we had this idea before, so let's actually start it. So she started doing like the hand-dyed socks. That's how it kind of started. And then I, like, on my end, I was already used to like making accessories. So I would start making like little, like hair clips, scrunchies. I started sewing like a bunch of scrunchies. I'm actually in the middle of sewing like a whole stock of it. And I'm like, doing it by yourself, it can get, you're like, I wish I had more people to help me, but I mean, it's fun, and that's what I love to do. So I started doing that side of it, which is like the kids' accessories, and then she started doing like the actual like kids' clothing, and like socks, and then we're venturing now into beanies and like all these like ideas that we have. And you know, like that also, like I really appreciate going, like everything now is like technology. Like even though she's all the way in the States in South Carolina now, and I'm all the way here in Spain, we're still able to make it work. And like it doesn't really matter how far we are. The only issue is like, you know, actually getting like products right, and like I have to like mail it to her so she can ship it out and all that. But other than that, like everything, like social media, you know, working like with your sister, it's always so much fun. And it's always like, there's times where we do butt heads and we're like, wait, that's too many ideas. No, like stop right there. Cause we have those moments. Well, she'll text me, like for my time, it'll be like already like 2 a.m. and I'll get like dings while I'm like trying to sleep. And she's like, oh my God, what if we start like making these, or like, what do you think about this idea, or how about this design? Because then she'll do some of the designs and I'll do some of the designs. And I think just like putting all of our skills together, I think it's always fun. And it helps that she's also a photographer, so she's able to take photos, like product photos. It helps that I have like some background in selling like handmade goods, like whether it's like Etsy or like even in person, and also like my graphic design background. So I think, you know, combining like forces and working like with like a business partner, I guess, and on top of that, having it be your sister is always fun. And I'm sure you two can understand that feeling. Like it's always so much fun. So
Absolutely. Well, and you know, so your sister's older than you, right, Jane?
yes.
Okay, so I think that your sister and I are very much alike in that we have a lot of like great ideas. We have a lot of ideas, not all of them great. I should rephrase that. Because I do the same thing to Devin. I'll send her 20 text messages in a row. And she kind of has to like reel me in, like, okay, like let's focus. But I think part of it, you know, and I'm going to make a big assumption here and speak on your sister's behalf. I think we're just really excited to be able to like work with our little sister. And it's just exactly like you said, it's such a great thing to do. I know actually when Devin and I first started the podcast, I was getting a lot of like messages from friends like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, how can you spend that much time with your sister? And I'm like, how could I not? Like, you know, it just comes so naturally. And I think it's really beautiful that you and your sister were able to start something, especially given the space between you geographically. So I think that that's really beautiful. And I know that we are definitely fans. I'm going to put Dylan on blast. He's worn his hand-dyed socks like every day ever since he received them.
I was like, Chelsea actually bought it. I was like, oh, thanks guys for your support.
Yeah, so we'll probably have to buy him more because he's seriously wearing the same pair ever since he got them.
You know, it's funny. I think Jordy might have the same pair. Is it the black and like the Baltic amber one? Like Jordy has the same pair, but he didn't bring it with him to deployment. So I actually wear it. And I'm like, I'm going to just take these for myself and you can order some new ones. You have to order it though, okay? Support the business.
Oh, that's so funny.
I know, and my sister always tells me too, like we're both like, given the circumstances and like the space, like we're still able to make it work, but we're always telling each other like, I can't wait till like I move to the States and we're like a little bit closer, because now we can actually work together. Because before, whenever I would visit and like we would do craft projects for the kids, or if like like every time I get there, she's always asking me, hey, can you make this for the kids? Or like, can you like, like whether it's like a t-shirt, like embroidered t-shirt or whatever, she'll be like, can you make this for the kids? So I feel like once I'm back, it's just going to be even funner, even better, because we get to, see each other work and then vibe off of each other, I guess. Like, like work off of each other's energy. Because right now it's just off like FaceTime or anything, but which is still fun. But it's not, it's not the same as if you're like actually in a room together, like working on it, or even in your case, like editing together or talking, like having meetings about your business or your podcast. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, we're excited for it too. We're excited for you and Jordy to be closer. I made the mistake of, I had a work meeting and it was a video call, and we were playing a virtual game, and it was like you had to show like 5 things from your desk, and then people had to guess like whose desk it was. And I made the mistake of showing the handmade flowers that you made for me for Mother's Day. And I swear, Jane, I got like 10 text messages like, where did you get those flowers? Where can I order them from? I mean, everyone, all of my coworkers loved the handmade flowers that you made for me. And I was like, sorry, she's not your sister-in-law.
Yeah, this is what happens when I have like 50 hobbies. Because I have phases in my life where I'm like, I want to get into like paper flowers. So then I did, like I learned it and then I did it. So, and then I'm like, I don't know, I have a lot of hobbies, and I think that's what keeps me sane, so yeah.
Keeps it fresh and keeps it like creative and exciting, right? For you to take on a new project and a new skill. And now you can say, yeah, I can make you some paper flowers. What kind of flowers do you want?
It's such a random skill, but I feel like I've always loved crafting and working with my hands, and, just like making things like actual, like tangible products. So like whatever new skills that I can learn, I'll always like research and do it, watch tutorials, like learn. So I love learning new skills, and I love like finding places where I can use those skills.
Yeah. Well, I think we're about to transition so that we can test your quick thinking skills. We're gonna segue into our rapid fire segment for the episode.
Okay, this is the part where you're gonna have to do a lot of editing. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I'm gonna set a timer. This season, we're giving our guests a little bit extra time. So I'm going to set the timer for 45 seconds. And Devin is going to go through a series of rapid fire questions. The idea is to answer them as quick as possible. And our goal is really just to put you on the spot.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Good luck. Good luck.
Okay, ready, set, go.
What did you eat for breakfast this morning?
I had veggie bites.
Favorite food in Spain?
Paella.
If you could write a book, what would it be about?
I guess my design and illustration and crafting journey.
What's your favorite flower or plant?
Oh no, I have a lot. Peonies. I like peonies.
That's a good answer. What was the last thing you watched on TV?
I don't watch a lot of TV. I do watch a lot of Netflix or Amazon Prime. And I think the last thing that I watched is, oh no, I forgot. I think it might have been like Nailed It or something, or like some baking show, because I like to have that in the back while I clean.
Time.
Yeah, that's a good show to have on, just to like have some background noise, but also to like have something fun to watch when you're kind of like taking a break from whatever you're doing.
Yeah, like something that I don't have to focus too hard on, but like, because I like watching a lot of like those creative shows where whether it's like baking or like I think there was one with like, they were doing like something with a flower competition, like arranging flowers. I don't know. There's a bunch of shows on Netflix now that I'm like, and there's even like design shows. So I'm like, wow, this is perfect. You know, like I can still find inspiration, but work on house chores, cleaning the house.
There's a couple questions on here, Jane, that we didn't get to. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and I'm going to ask you, what food do you miss most from the U.S.?
Ooh, Mexican food. And I don't like anything like the dessert places, ramen, sushi, anything in like Convoy area, you know, the Claremont area. That I miss that, and I miss really good Mexican food and Chick-fil-A and Jollibee and and Bonchon and all these like places that aren't here.
Okay, and then who's your favorite sister-in-law? I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. I put it on here as a joke, and Devin was like, Jane is gonna die.
Well, to answer the question, it's Dylan. No, I'm just kidding.
Dang it. That's so funny.
Well, Jane, in light of COVID and everything that's happening, and I know that you're out in Spain, but we've talked here and there. You've been keeping up with everything that's been happening in the dance community. Especially this year, 2020 has been a hard year for everyone, but particularly the dance community. And we just really want to highlight some good things that are happening. And so I would love to hear your opinion on what's good in the dance community right now.
Well, I think what's good in the dance community overall is just how much support that everyone's getting, because I know like a lot of studios are struggling, but there's still like so much support for them, whether it's like, virtual dance classes. I think that's what's really good. Another thing is just like the outreach to the community, especially like specifically like the Filipino dance community. There's like outreach programs, or like even like Zoom meetings or conversations about like not only like what's going on in like the Filipino dance community, but just the Philippines or like Philippine culture, history in general, and getting that out there. And like making sure that things are you're staying accurate, but you're like respecting the culture, but you're also spreading like awareness, because not a lot of like Filipino Americans probably are in touch with their culture, their roots, or really know anything about Filipino dance. So I think just like the outreach, having conversations and opening that up allows for people to like really, even like if you're not Filipino American, just anyone in the community, like being able to showcase and like learn about it and what makes these dances so beautiful and like the history behind it. So I think that, and like doing it in a way that's safe, like virtually, like showcasing whether it's like performances, like it doesn't have to stop, even though there's a pandemic going on. There's still, for example, Pasacat is still showcasing like performances. I know they're doing the Pearl Lantern Festival, I think. They're doing it virtually, which is coming up in December. I think I'll probably talk about that in a little bit, but you can probably check it out. But overall, I think just like what's good is just like I said, like the support, the outreach to the community, and, you know, being able to still do what you love, whether it's like dance or like anything, like just do what you love and finding new mediums for it, still finding creative ways to like showcase it. So yeah, I'm excited to like see all of like the new creative ways that not only like the dance community, but just like creatives in general, like how they're going to showcase whatever like their creative passions or whatever passion project they're doing, like just how they're going to showcase it to the community, to the world.
That's a great answer. I love that answer.
Yeah. And I think it's really important for our listeners and really just everyone in the world right now to realize that the current state of the world and all of the situations that are going on, yes, it requires our attention, it requires action, but in no way is it meant to put a stop to these beautiful things such as the Pearl Lantern Festival, all the things that we know and love within the dance community or just being creative in general. This is an opportunity. It is a challenge for us to push further than we have before. And I think if we keep that in mind, we'll be surprised. We'll be pleasantly surprised with what we see at the end of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. And I'm excited to see like the different ways that it can keep going. You know, like I'm sure people, especially now in this like these circumstances in this time, people are probably feeling burnt out, but like, you know, just finding support from your community and like being able to keep going. I think like it's always exciting to see like when like people like creatives, especially when they just want to like, you know, like I have this thing that I love and I want to share it with the world. So why not?
Absolutely. Well, where can people find you, Jane? Where can people find you and your business that you started with your sister?
For me, you can find me, I guess, on Instagram. I mean, I'm kind of using it as my business Instagram, but also like a personal one because I still have She Greets Today at She Greets Today if you want to check it out, anyways. But I'm not really active on it. So if you want to find me, it's at Jane herself. And then for Lux and Lia, my business with my sister, that's at Lux and Lia on Instagram. And also we're starting up in Etsy because we've been doing it on Instagram this whole time and it's kind of getting a little too much. So we're starting it up on Etsy. If anyone wants to check that out, we'll probably have products on there, I'm sure. So it's going to be etsy.com/Lux and Lia. Is that how it is? I can't remember.
I think so.
Yeah,
we'll have a link in the description box in the show notes.
Yes, thank you.
Well, Jane, I mean, selfishly, we wanted you on the podcast because, you know, we just love you and we wanted a chance to connect with you. But also, I think you're just a really amazing person and really an inspiration. I mean, I know that when Jordy, you know, first introduced you into our lives, I was like, she's the one. I know it. Just because you were very courageous, you were very independent thinking, and I knew that you would be a great balance for our brother. So you're an amazing, amazing woman. You're an amazing entrepreneur, but I'm so happy that I get to also, on top of all of that, call you my sister-in-law.
Yeah, me too. I think she's trying to vie for that favorite sister-in-law spot. But I just have to echo Michelle and say thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. You know, it was a little bit selfish for us because we just love talking to you. And I always feel inspired when we get the chance to chat with you or even just see like what you're up to, what you're creating on your Instagram, whether it be at Jane herself or at Lux and Lia. But I think I think our listeners are going to get so much from today's episode, and I'm just so excited to share it with them all and for them to be able to connect with you and also be inspired to take on whatever this new year throws at them.
Yeah, thank you, ladies, for having me. I mean, I really appreciate you even thinking of me, because I was like, what do I have to offer? Because I don't have a lot of like cool things to say, at least in my head. I was like texting Jordy, like, what should I talk about? Like, are people going to think I'm interesting? But I mean, yeah, it's always fun to catch up and just talk about like, you know, life and like what's going on. And I know, like, especially for me, like it's hard to, I guess, like keep in touch with everybody when the time difference is so huge. It's like a huge gap. It's like nighttime where I am, where it's like barely almost lunchtime where you guys are. So I think just like appreciating moments like this, even if I'm like thinking in my own head that I'm probably like, I don't know what kind of conversations I brought to the table, but you know, just being able to talk to you two, and it's always fun and exciting. And even though I was nervous, I don't know if you could probably tell, it was still fun.
I'm so glad. Thank you, Jane.
Please don't bring your friends.
Thank you so much for listening to the Collab podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, please show your support by leaving a review on iTunes.
And be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcast.
The conversation continues over on Instagram and YouTube with highlights from today's episode.
When you on the way, make that move. Can't stay dead, no, that's my boo. Yeah, that's boo.